Hey, what's up everybody? Phil Bowen here with Alpine Electronics. Today we're going to be installing the new X409-WRA for the 2012 and up Wrangler JK. So let's go ahead and grab our tools and then I'll walk you through the install. So the first thing we want to do is disconnect the negative battery terminal. So the next step in the install is disassembly. We're going to remove the upper dash panel, the knee bolster panel, and the HVAC controls. Using a panel removal tool, pop the window switch out to access the 7mm screw that's behind it. Next, remove the rubber tray from the upper dash panel and remove the 7mm screw underneath it. Next, we'll remove the lower dash panel to access the two screws behind that. All right, now with all the screws removed, now we can remove the upper dash panel. And now with the upper dash panel removed, we can remove this side panel. So because this Jeep is equipped with factory Uconnect, we need to remove the HVAC panel so that we can access the Uconnect module to get the USB input. The factory USB input is located at the bottom of this module. So what we need to do is unscrew this module here, and then we'll rotate it up and unplug the factory USB input, which we'll later use for our install. All right, so next we'll go ahead and remove the 4 screws that hold the radio in, and then we can take out the factory radio. And now with the radio removed, we can remove the 2 7mm screws that hold in the rear support bracket, and we can take that out. All right, now that we're done disassembling the vehicle, now we can start with the installation. The first step in the installation is to trim the factory dash bezel. What we need to do is cut along this line here in order to make room for the 9-inch bezel that will take its place. Okay, so before we trim the dash, we need to remove the factory vents. So you do that by pressing down to release the clip and then twist and the vent will come out. Put these aside because we'll reuse them later. Okay, now that we have the vents removed, I'm going to use a cutting tool here and we're going to cut along this line. Now that we've trimmed the dash where we need it, I'm going to go ahead and take a razor knife and kind of clean up the edge. In order to make room for the large 9-inch display, using the same cutting tool, we need to remove this plastic piece. All right, so now with all the necessary modification done to the dash and the vehicle disassembled, we're going to go ahead and start installing the components. First component we're going to install is the Bluetooth microphone. Okay, so to install the Bluetooth microphone, we want to move the visor out of the way and unclip this panel. Now we can clip the microphone to this panel and then run the wire towards the A pillar. All right, now that we've got the microphone run, we're going to install the GPS antenna. The GPS antenna mounts on top of the factory roll cage, and then we'll run the wire along the factory roll cage pad, and we'll meet it up with the Bluetooth wire, and we'll run them all together. All right, next we'll run these two wires down the A pillar. So now we could take the GPS and Bluetooth microphone wires and we can run them across the dash over to the radio cavity. Now we'll take our CAN bus connector, we'll plug it into the OBD2 port, and then we'll route the other end up to the radio. Next we'll take our supplied USB adapter and we're going to plug it into the connection that we disconnected earlier. Next we'll take our USB extension cable and we'll route that up to behind where the radio is going. All right, now that we've got our USB connection made, we can reinstall the HVAC controls. Now we're going to go ahead and plug in our antenna adapters. This one is our AM/FM antenna adapter. This one here is our satellite radio adapter. We're not adding a satellite radio to this particular install, but we do plug that in just in case we ever decide to add one later. All right, let's take our extra microphone cable here and we'll wind it up and then we'll zip tie the mic. All right, so the next thing I like to do is to pre-assemble the unit here on the workbench. It makes it a lot easier when you get in there to do the actual installation. So the first part of the pre-assembly is to install the brackets on the back of the monitor. Next, we'll take the insulating pad and we'll stick it on the front of the tuner. Now we'll take the brackets and we'll mount the brackets on the side of the tuner. All right, next we'll take the monitor and we'll mount that to the bracket as well. Now what we want to do is lay the radio face down and then we'll start making the connections on the back of it. The first thing we'll plug in is the main harness. Next we'll plug in the camera adapter harness. Next we'll plug in the monitor power harness. Now we have the key bezel harness. Next we have the preamp output harness. And we've got our display cable. The next step in the installation process is programming the iDataLink Maestro module. Go to iDataLinkMaestro.com and follow the instructions on the website, or refer to the installation manual for the step-by-step instruction on how to do it. Okay, now that our iDataLink Maestro module is programmed, now we're going to go ahead and plug it into the main harness of the radio. There are 6 connections to be made on the Maestro module, and they're color coordinated for easy identification. All right, so now that we have the radio completely assembled, now we're going to hop back in the car and we're going to get this thing plugged in. All right, now that we've got all of our connections made, we can go ahead and mount the radio, and then we'll get this thing put back together. All right, now we've got our screen mounted, we've got everything plugged in and working. Next, what we want to do is remove this protective styrofoam. This protects this foam pad during shipping. It's also important to note that the end of this harness stays above the radio. This is our key bezel harness. This will plug into our bezel once we put everything together. And then next, what we need to do is tuck away all the wiring, make sure we've got clearance for the vents, and then we can put the bezel back on the front of it. All right, now we can go ahead and reassemble the vehicle. All right, now we can connect and install the new bezel. Now we can go ahead and put our vents back in. And our window switch. And now all that's left to do is to peel off the protective film and power the unit up. So there it is. That's the installation on the new 9-inch X409-WRA for your 2012 newer Wrangler JK. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.